I was raised in a very loving, stable home. My parents had even been married in the Catholic Church, but at the time that they were already on their way out of the faith. So while my older brother was baptized Catholic, when I came along 4 years later, organized religion of any kind was a complete non-starter in our house. We'd have big breakfasts on Sunday and talk about how glad we were we didn't have to go out to church and waste an entire morning. We'd agree that holidays like Easter and Christmas would be so much better if all that religious stuff could be taken out of it. At best, religion in general, but Catholicism specifically, was an emotional lollipop, and at worst, it was the root cause of the world's worst atrocities. Growing up in the Bible Belt with heavy talk about one's sins and eternal damnation and the rapture, the religious folk that I encountered on a day-to-day basis seemed to either be hypocritical and mean or just simply naive. But as most people, I had a lot of questions about who I was and what was the point of it all and why was I here and where was I going afterwards. So without any proper guidance, I wound up just attaching myself to anything that seemed transcendent in some way. So reincarnation, dream interpretation, tarot cards, Ouija boards, you name it. I did it and was interested in it. And I thought that, the more I read about New Age spirituality and got interested in it, the more likely it was that I was one of those lucky few who got to peek behind the veil and see things about the universe that, not very many people got to know. And along with this spiritual superiority came a lot of moral subjectivity. And I wound up doing a lot of damage to myself and others during this time because there wasn't any objective right or wrong. And I could change whatever I thought was right or wrong on a daily basis if I wanted to. But as the years went on, and there were personal tragedies, global tragedies, family member suicides, friends dying in horrific car accidents to 9/11 and tsunamis, I started wondering if my previous idea of this kind of amalgamation of bad Star Wars philosophy and poorly studied Eastern religions, that there was this balance of right and wrong in the world and good and evil, that maybe there wasn't any balance at all. And maybe there wasn't any good, and maybe there wasn't any evil. Maybe we were all just a haphazard collection of atoms whizzing through the universe for no apparent reason. And so I eventually, after spending so many years as a spiritual so-and-so, became despaired and wound up being an atheist. But at the same time, when all hope about my future and where we were going was lost, I became a mother. And, realizing that I was spending so much time loving my child, spending time with him, reading to him, changing diapers, to think that in 100 years we would be dead in dust was really depressing. And so I became very hopeful that maybe there was something more there. And I was so blessed to finally find out through studying historical Jesus and the Catholic Church that all my seeking, all my questions had answers in the faith itself. So while I began to hope that there was something more and some reason, transcendent love and reason that I was wanting to be with my children and share this life with them, my husband actually converted to the faith, or began to. And even though I said that there was no way that I would ever become Christian and certainly not Catholic, I did agree to start learning about Jesus a little bit more and go beyond the ways that I had heard of him as a youth, which was very pop culture. He's your buddy versus he's also going to allow you to become a slave of Satan for 1,000 years. So I started actually looking at who the historical Jesus was. I started learning about Catholicism. And what I found was what I always thought that Jesus, or that the Catholic Church was kind of a middleman that kept people from a direct relationship with God. It was quite the opposite. And so I wound up doing a lot of research, doing a lot of reading, a lot of praying, which seemed very awkward and weird at first for me to do. But I wound up deciding that the Catholic Church was actually the one true faith. So I started going to church, talked to the religious sister who was in charge of adult faith formation at my parish, and decided to take those first steps towards baptism and eventually to confirmation. It's changed everything. My marriage has gotten better. I've been a better mother, even just a better daughter, friend. I've taken on people's sufferings where before I would have just completely ignored them. And so everything about my life, though it's been harder in some ways because I'm held to a standard that I never would have been held to before, has really improved and become much richer than it ever was, even when I thought that I was in charge of my life and could make my own rules and my own morality.